So basically, to get started, like I said, I did an introduction of myself. And today's agenda is going to be, we're going to give a quick little company update just to tell you, what's been going on with the company, where we've been, how we started, just to let everybody know. I will be going through some product updates about, the last few releases of our products and all the great new features and everything that we've added to our products. I'm going to do a quick little summary about our cloud strategy and where we are with the cloud. And finally, I have Brian King on here with me on here, and he's going to provide you with a demo for our PAR product, the PA-RISC product, which will be running HP-UX. So basically, where has the company been? We've been around now for 24 years. And, from the first sale of the VAX to the New Bedford Public Schools, all the way here into 2023, some of the big things that we've done is we launched our AXP product in 2006. And we launched our what we call Charon-PAR, which used to be HP 3000 product in 2012. We then went ahead and we launched our SSP product in 2015, which is our SPARC product. And not on this chart, but also, is that we updated PAR, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, in about 2021 to include the PA-RISC systems that run HP-UX. And finally, this year, we joined the Partner One family of companies. So we are part of one of the fastest growing enterprise software groups in the world. So now we are backed up by Partner One. So we are not going anywhere. We have been around for these 24 years, and we plan to be around much, much further into the future. And, we are always looking, we're looking fast forward. We're looking to always improve our products, which is why you're all here to hear about what we've been doing. So just to review our family, our Charon solution family, basically we started off with the PDP-11, which runs the RSX 11 operating system. And then later on, we came out with the Charon-VAX, which supported VMS running on the DEC VAX. We came out with Charon-AXP, which is running on the DEC Alpha, running True64 VMS. We then, there's Charon-PAR for the PA-RISC systems running, vaguely we call it HP 3000, HP 9000, but basically any of the HP PA-RISC systems running MPE or HP-UX. And we have the Charon-SSP, which supports the Sun, Oracle, Fujitsu, SPARC systems running Solaris. And I will go into more details about all of these. So let me start with Charon-AXP and Charon-VAX and where we've been and where we're at with these products. First of all, as far as Charon-VAX goes, we are keeping up to date on the host operating systems. For example, we've added support for Red Hat 8 and 9 hosts, support for Windows 10 and 11 hosts, for all the virtual hosts, such as VMware, Hyper-V. For all the clouds, we can actually run a VAX in the cloud. We re-implemented serial lines for better access and other controllers for better user experience. We are supporting the IEEE gigabit connectivity, and we always listen to our customers. And as time goes on and each release of the product, we make sure that we put in the proper fixes to eliminate any kind of problems that have been reported to us. So, we, like I said, better implementation of some of these controllers, help to fix some of these problems, eliminate some hangs that might have been happening or any other fixes out there. So we're always keeping our Charon-VAX product up to date and making sure that it follows where the host technology is, because as you guys all should know is that our products need to have a host operating system. In terms of VAX and our AXP products, they can be Windows or Linux. In terms of the PAR products or the SSP products, those are Linux only. So when we talk about Charon-AXP, and I'm going to start with a few versions back. I'm going to start because some of you who are attending this may be running very old versions. You may be running version 5, 6, 7, you know, or even older than that. So I just wanted to start with version 10. And this is where we added support for several of the Windows hosts. We added support for Red Hat 8 hosts. We supported the cloud. We supported Hyper-V. And, you know, we did add support for some graphics display adapter at the time in version 10. It was mostly like this was the first introduction to support the PBXGA graphics digital adapter into that. So the other thing we did, of course, with version 10, like I said, all these slides will talk about this, is we fixed any issues, anything that comes up. We work very tightly, you know, our field engineering team, when we look at the cases that are given to us, we work very closely with our development engineers, and we're very quick to you know, fix those issues, put them in the next release coming out, provide all that's necessary to keep making sure that your mission critical applications keep running as they should, that nothing will happen due to our software, that our software is sitting there running for years and years on end, causing no problem for whatever mission critical applications are running on those Solaris, HPUX, VMS, True64 operating systems. When we came out with Charon-AXP version 11, we completely re-implemented the serial lines for a much better user experience. And we also improved the support for the graphics display adapter. And we put in multiple heads, panoramics, and other extensions to go in that. And once again, like I said, we put in issue fixes on our Charon-AXP, because as this is a more mature product, we want to, like I said, constantly put in what we feel the customers are asking for, but at the same time, you know, we want to make sure we keep the product stable and up to date. And finally, coming soon, this is the next release that's coming out really, really soon, probably sometime this quarter. We're going to support Red Hat 9 hosts, Windows 11 and Server 2022, and more improved support for the graphics adapters, support for touchscreen displays, remote access using VNC clients. In here, we're going to add that support for the GBIB connectivity, the DEC IEP 11. We're going to start adding that in. And we're going to, of course, more fixes. And something else we're adding into version 12. And a concept that I want to bring up, because this applies to the cloud, is something called VE support. And what VE support is we need to be able to license our products. We originally started with the dongle, which was, you know, when we were doing on-premise implementations, we would ship you off a dongle. We would plug in the dongle into the system, and then later on, you know, with VMware and other systems, we started to do something called software licenses, where you would send us a fingerprint and we would send you back a license, but the hardware was pretty stable. When we are talking about cloud specifically, that didn't seem to work anymore. So what we came up with was a license scheme where we had where we create a license server out there, and it can be on this where the emulator is installed, but it can also be on a small little cloud instance, and there is where, you know, your license will sit. The fingerprinting will be sent into us, and we'll send you back the license. So what's coming out for our next version of AXP is what we call this VE support, just support of this specific way to license our products on the cloud to make sure that our licensing follows the technology as it goes forward. So I just wanted to introduce to those who didn't know the concept of VE, which is, it stands for virtual extension, but it's our license server. We call it VE license server. But I wanted to explain that out there so that people understood what it is as I talk about it going forward, that you knew what I am talking about and how that's important as we move forward and we move into the cloud. So that's the updates for VAX and ASP. And now I'm going to move on to our Charon-SSP, which is our SPARC product. Probably, you know, when you go out there and you look at the market share, there is a lot out there in terms of the SPARC. A lot of you probably have come to us with SPARCs. Like I said, I think we have people in here who are running all our products from, like I said, from VAX all the way up to the Charon-PAR products. So I, you know, to address this audience, some of you are aware of this, some of you are not, but we support Charon-SSP, which is which supports all the different versions of Solaris, all the way up from the first version to version 11.4. And as I go on and it'll show all the features we've added going forward. Because Oracle has continued to sell SPARCs, and I'll talk about this a little bit later in terms of the idea of how we're going to support SPARCs in the future, since they're still out there and Oracle has still they're still more modern. They're not exactly always considered legacy, and what we're going to do to address that, because that can bring on some performance considerations. So, you know, we had some earlier releases, but the first big new release that we had with Charon-SSP was version 4.0. And with this version 4.0, we first came out, and this is just, we did 4.2, and, you know, we had several versions of 4, but what the 4 series brought on is cloud-specific product variants, so that we had, for example, for AWS, we had an AMI for that, and we had an image for OCI, and we had images for Google, and the proper images for Azure. This is where we brought in the support for what we call the Sun 4V architecture, which is the architecture that Sun came out with in the later 2000s. Anything that starts necessarily with a T, I'll call it the T series. Before that, we only did Sun 4U and Sun 4M, which was the 34-bit and the 64-bit Sun 4U architecture. So that sort of limited us to what we could support and only went up to Solaris 10. So with version 4, we also added more memory initially. Since then, we've gone even further, but we added initially 512 gigabytes on Solaris 11. Now we can go up further to a gig. And Solaris 10 was a terabyte. At this point in our Charon-SSP product, we have something called the Charon Manager, which is a GUI interface, which was very different than our previous other products. It's the only product we have that does have a GUI to help manage the product, and we integrated this SSH tunnel for it. We made you change, you know, for security, some initial password changes. We put in some USB removable device support, and something in the emulator where you could suspend it and resume it. And of course, like I said, like anything else, and I keep bringing this up, we do fix all the issues that had been brought up in previous releases. In every release of version 4.x or 4. You know, that came out, we made sure to take whatever was reported to engineering and fix those. So then we came out with Charon-SSP version 5.x. And this is where we first introduced that VE license server that I talked about that's going to be in AXP. And this was a way, like I said, we were looking at the cloud and we were looking at how do we license our product, and this was a good way to do that. We also, our Charon-SSP product was available in different marketplaces, but the way the marketplaces were working, we wanted to make sure, you know, to also maintain licenses, and we had to come up with a way to, if someone was not on public IP and could attach to our license server from the public marketplace listings, that we could also create a way to use VE to do that. So we created something called Auto VE. And then, you know, we started with support of version 8 of RHEL and CentOS and Oracle Linux. And then with version 5.6, we went up to the version 9 of the RHELs and Rocky Linux 9 up to 9.2. We increased that memory for Sun 4V. We then made sure we had the Charon Manager and Director for the Windows were available. So you can download and run your Charon-SSP from your laptop from a Windows machine versus doing it directly on the Linux box. And we added some configuration options that were requested, and we were able to set up delay for auto start when you're starting up the host operating system to start it up. So that was something that was requested. And then another thing that's for our Charon-SSP product is we added in AMD support. So mostly we've been talking about Intel CPUs, and we always need fast Intel CPUs, 3.0 gigahertz or faster, especially for our newer products. And then we've decided that, you know, and we started with SSP and said, let's support the AMD. So we do support the modern AMD CPUs as well. As we know, those are gaining more and more popularity as we move on. So version 6, which we plan to release coming out in the future. And one of the things that I'm talking about and I bring up because Oracle still has SPARCs out there, and some of these SPARCs run faster than the Intel chip, and we have to look at them, and we always have to look at what is running on them or how much of the CPU is running, because we want to make sure that we keep you, the customer, happy, and we don't want to promise you something that we cannot deliver. So we do have there, you know, there is overhead to our emulation. And on the older products, it wasn't so big an issue. But in the newer products, in the newer versions, you know, when people kept coming to us with newer systems that people are running and these large SPARC systems, which I'm not going to go into a lot of the technical detail here because this is more about what we have been doing versus details about our products. But we need to improve, especially in the cloud, we need to improve performance, because we could on-premise run something called SSP Plus, which increased our performance, I would guess about 30% or so. But how do we do this in the cloud? How do we do this without bare metal hardware? So one of the things we plan to do is we tend to be able to try to run our Charon-SSP on the cloud as fast as SSP Plus. You know, we want to increase, you know, we want to make sure that if we're doing heavy disk IO, because a lot of people are talking about databases, that we can improve that. You know, like I said, accumulating any fixes that need to go into will go into the version 6 coming out. Improve graphic card emulation, and further support going further into whatever comes out in terms of Red Hat Linux, Rocky Linux. And we're going to have this new, and I don't have the exact details about this, it's called SMT option in 4V, and where you can see one SPARC CPU with the threads underneath it. So it's going to be a way, because the newer SPARCs are about threads. So I don't have the exact details about this, but these are the things that are planned, as everybody knows, you know, these are planned, this is planned release Q1, and these are the things that are planned to be in that release. But as anything else, until the release comes out, our plans are subject to change. So moving on, I'm going to talk about Charon-PAR, PA-RISC. And basically, our first version, what we'll call PAR version 1, was previously our HP 3000 emulator. We first released it in January 2012. We started off with just 300 megahertz speed and 24 gigahertz of memory. We supported the A class and the N class. Initially we did Ubuntu Linux, and then we decided that, you know, the world is mostly running the RHEL and CentOS, so we changed it over to Red Hat 7 and CentOS 7, and of course over all the releases of version 1 moving up, as any of our other products, were always increasing performance, trying to make our emulators faster, and putting in any kind of product enhancements that have been requested, that we have found that we think our customers need. So this was all what we did for Charon-PAR version 1. Then came Charon-PAR version 2.0, and this was the first, you know, first came out in April 2020. We continued with that whole PA3 for the HP 3000 MPE, and then we came out with something called PA9 for HPUX 64-bit systems running HPUX 11.11 and 11.23. And some of the systems with PA 8500 CPUs running 11.0. And then, like I said, initially it was, you know, we started off slower, but as we started to move faster and faster, you know, we started to increase performance. And as you can see with Charon-PAR 3.0, which I'm going to show next, we're doing pretty good with the performance of PA9, because that's what we were constantly working on. And so initially we supported lower end models of HPUX, up to 8 CPUs, and this was all about the Linux OSs, 7.4 plus, CentOS 4, and all the sub-releases of version 2 were just making the product better and better and better with every single release that we came out with. So then we finally, in October 2021, came out with Charon-PAR 3.0. We added some 32-bit systems to run HPUX 9.07, 1020, and 11. And look at this. Now we're able to provide up to 1.1 gigahertz speed and 524 gigabytes emulated memory, depending on the model. And we're still supporting the A class and the N classes of the HPUX. And we're supporting all these different models for the RP24, 5400, 7400, 30, you know, all these different 64-bit systems that run HPUX 11.0, and even a few, as long as they're PA-RISC and not Itanium systems, up to 11.31. And then, of course, there's these systems called 3440 plus and 440 plus, which are, from what I understand, and I'm not an expert in HPUX, but these systems have some kind of virtualization method of which we could theoretically support up to 128 CPUs. You'd have to have a host, of course, that could also support that, but theoretically we've added that support. And, you know, we added in, you know, the additional support for version 8 and 9 of CentOS and Rocky Linux. And over the sub-releases, which I have some more further information about the sub-releases, the products, we kept doing product enhancements and performance, which, you know, here are some of them. Like, for example, between version 3.04 and 3.12, we're talking about serial line features, you know, the you know, support of Rocky Linux 8.x and 9.x. I apologize for that question mark. Yeah, we are supporting 9.x. We have an Ignite HPUX network boot. This is something else. We talk about that VE license that can allow you to run all our products in the cloud. And that was enabled in the emulator. And we made floating point performance improvements, adding in a -F option. And of course, the latest release that's going to be out, which is 3.012, of course, always includes fixes. And we're constantly, like I said, working on ways. How can we make this run faster? How can we add in additional hardware support? And, in the PA-RISC product line. So this is where we're going with this as far as the PA-RISC and our PAR products. So these are the updates that I have for all the individual products that as we've been coming along, and we're going to constantly do this. And, if, and listen to all of you and what you want to see on these products. Keep in mind, though, that, this is, like I said, Charon-PAR is PA-RISC. We do get asked once in a while, what about Itanium? Itanium is a whole different architecture, and it's a very complex architecture. So I don't know if that will come out in the future, because I have a feeling that question would come out, but be brought up. But for now, this is where we're putting our focus. We're putting our focus on making sure that our existing products keep up to date, and our releases in Charon-PAR and Charon-SSP continue to make things go faster, have better performance, support different hardware, and anything that looks to be desired in those different products. So on our cloud, we are very, very cloud friendly. We have great alliance partnerships with all the cloud vendors. And we make sure that we work with, all the major 4 cloud vendors, the AWS, Azure, Google, and OCR are the 4 that, I consider the top 4. We also have worked with IBM Cloud, and we can work with other clouds. There's some smaller cloud companies out there, and we're always out there. We're willing to test our products on any cloud that's out there to make sure that it runs. The other thing I did not bring up here is we also support any kind of hyper-converged infrastructure such as Nutanix, and the same as and so we do have some customers running in Nutanix as well that I did leave out here. The same thing with any of the the VMwares, Hyper-Vs, anything out there we support. So for all the major clouds, we have the VE licensing for PAR and SSP, and the AXP is coming soon. Through Marketplace, if you want to do something that what I call pay-as-you-go type of thing, that can, or something similar, if you have to go through Marketplace, we can do things through private offers. And just to understand that the speed rules are very important. As you all know, we always ask for 3.0 gigahertz or higher, and some of the instances we recommend, it's up to which cloud you want to use. That's up to the you as the customer, which instance you want to use. We can make recommendations as far as saying you need something 3.0 gigahertz or higher, but it's still up to the customer to always pick and choose. Once we tell you we need this many CPUs, we need this much memory, this much storage. But just to give you a general idea of what we generally like to see is in AWS, they have the C5 series. There's also these new I series that come under the C, M, and R. The fastest ones are the Z1Ds and the M5ZNs, provide the highest speeds available. In Azure, the FX series provides really fast, the highest speeds. I think that's 3.4 gigahertz. And if you, a more mainstream, if you do have the slower, older systems, sometimes you can use the FS series. In Google, you have the C2 and C3 series, which are the compute series, and the N2 series. And OCI is something called Optimized Flex, which is 3.0 gigahertz, where you can pick your CPUs, you can pick your memory, and you can pick your storage. It's sort of like a la carte. So this is just my rules of thumb. This is just, you know, talking in a general sense where we like to see things. Everybody has their own cloud strategy. Everybody is deciding, you know, what they use and what they can't use, but we're still applying, whether you're on premise, whether you're in VMware, no matter where you're trying to run our emulator, we still need those high clock speeds to run most of the newer emulators. The other thing I want to bring up is we've gotten a lot of recognition from the different cloud companies. For AWS, we passed the well-architected framework and we got our migration competency in 2022. And in Azure, we are one of the first customers to launch into something new, which they have, which is called the landing zone, where when you go to the landing zone, it just launches our VE version of the emulator. And this is for SSP at this point. Most of these things that we've been focusing on in the cloud as far as being available has been for our Charon-SSP, but all our products can run in all the clouds. So there's not a problem, like I said, running a VAX in the cloud, running an Alpha, running an HP 3000 or 9000 in the cloud. And there's absolutely no, you know, if you're not ready to go to the cloud, we, like I said, we can remain on-prem, we can remain in VMware or any of the other hypervisors, Oracle's hypervisor, as long as it's x86 and has, you know, and follows what we recommend. We really are agnostic to where you want to run our emulators, but we do support everything out there, and anything coming down the line, of course, we will always support. So at this point, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I am going to turn it over to Brian, who's going to show you a little demo of Charon-PAR, because probably a lot of you have never seen Charon-PAR, so we figured it'd be a good idea just to show how it runs. So I'm going to stop presenting. And Brian, I'm going to, if you want to unmute and share your screen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Very good. Hello, everybody. Hi, excuse me. Hello, everybody. So my name's Brian. I've been doing HP/UX work for going on about 30 years. And I was very impressed when I first was introduced to Charon-PAR, because HP/UX has never been able to be emulated before. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick demo here and just kind of show you how we go about booting it up and getting it running on top of the Linux. So with that, I'll share my screen. Is the font large enough? Can you all see this okay? And I don't expect to hear from 50 people, but I just want to make sure that the font is large enough so that you can actually read the screen. And Sandy, maybe you can tell me if it's good or not.
Hold on. Maybe a little bit, put the font up just a little bit more.
How's that?
That's good.
Okay, so I'm logged into a local Linux. I have a VMware server at my house here, and I'm logged into a Linux instance that I have running on there. And as you can see, it's CentOS. It's version 7.9, which is, of course, one of the versions that we can run on. What I want to do is I want to show you just a couple of things. I want to show you the a configuration file. Not to get into it too deep, but I want to show you this just so you can. And I'm emulating an RP5470. And I'm going to be booting up 11.11, so I'm going to show you this one. And basically, again, not to get into too much detail, I want to show you that the model that we're running is an RP5470 with 2 CPU running at 550 megahertz. We've got 2 gig of memory. we have a disk device that is a file on Linux. But it gets presented via the configuration. It gets presented to the HPUX environment as a CTD type of disk device. And then we have our networking. I'm using interface ENS224. So you can see we have ENS192, which is the Linux interface, and then we have ENS224, which is not configured at the Linux level. It will get configured via the Charon-PAR emulator. And then with that, I'm going to go ahead and just launch the emulator. And we specify the configuration file. And then I'm going to kick it into background. There are several ways that it can be launched, but this is the preferred method for myself. Okay, I'm just going to verify that the emulator is actually up and running. And it is. So now with that, we have a virtual console, and that's bound to port 30,000 by default on localhost. So I'll just tell it to localhost. At port 30,000. And for those of you that are familiar with HPUX, this will look familiar. This is the BCH where we can go ahead and issue the boot. It can also be configured just like in a physical box. It can be configured to boot up automatically. I don't have that configured on this particular box. So I'll go ahead and boot up. And as you all may or may not know about HPUX, sometimes the boot process can take a little while. I think this will be done in about a minute, I imagine. And while this is booting, so I think I mentioned to you that I'm booting the 11.11 version that I have, which is a 64-bit. As Sandy mentioned, we support 907, which is 32-bit, 1020, which is 32-bit, 11.0, which is either 32 or 64-bit, and then the standard 11i, so 11.11, 11.23, and 11.31, all being 64-bit.
For those of you who know HPUX, this should all look familiar.
Okay, and log into HPUX. just going to show you a couple things. You know, this is Unix, so see the two CPUs. And we've got, you know, standard VG00, which is the root volume group. Here, I wanted to. And we have a X, so I can just like run SAM and get, and this is going to be the TUI instead of the GUI. So okay. Okay. And unfortunately, I can't increase the font on any of this, so I apologize for that, but that's just a limitation. And those of you that are familiar with HPUX again are familiar with SAM. If you use the system admin management tool. It's out of here.
We're all good here. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody who came today and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
We're all good here. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody who came today and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.